Hello and welcome back to another Grateful Redhead episode. I am Angie Ringler, your Grateful Dead loving host, and today on the Grateful Redhead podcast, I have Diane Helbig, who honestly today is a guest about what I want to learn about personally. Many of you know that I run a business at wastefreeproducts.com, and I am such a sponge for taking in tips and tricks and ways that I can not only grow better in my business, but how those might also allow me to grow better personally. And man, when I can combine the two, that is a fantastic day, because the work-life balance, as most of you listening know, it is not easy. So when I came across Diane, I was taking in her podcasts and really kind of grabbing the tidbits. And there was one opening on your show, well, I think on all of your shows, Diane, where you open up with this saying that I loved: take what you need when you need it. And I feel like with the internet being such a plethora of information, that it is overload of wonderful information that's out there that we feel might be valuable to us later down the road, or that we think could be valuable to us today, but we don't really have the time or the bandwidth to take it all in at the moment. So that's what I really liked about your episodes, was that you provided them kind of in really digestible chunks, and the titles really kind of sum up what the episodes are about. So for those of you just listening to us, you know, we are on YouTube video, but Diane has joined me today on video as well. And I want to give her a few minutes to introduce herself, because she's got a lot of credibility behind her. And I think that once she shares that with us, you'll see why I felt it so important to bring Diane on the show. So go ahead, Diane, and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Angie. And I'm so thrilled to be here with you. Short story, I have been doing business advising and training for the past 16 years. Left a full-time, comfortable, safe job and said, that's it. I need to do something else, something that's a little more impactful and giving back to the universe. So took all my experience and a lot of conversations with my father and decided to become a business advisor, working mainly with small business owners. So that's why I have the podcast. That's why I've written a couple of books and do public speaking and work with people around sales, customer service, leadership, pretty much whatever's getting in their way. I want to help them get it out of their way so that they can be successful.
That is really good, because a lot of times we are in our own way. We become that big obstacle, that stands between us and success. And there's such a wide variety of what success means to all of us. Your podcast, Accelerate Your Business Growth. I wrote it down because I didn't want to get it wrong. Accelerate Your Business Growth. And really the topics were so wide. There was such a wide range. I mean, it was building relationships, even employee feedback, which I thought was really important, because a lot of times, I know for me, I'm that kind of personality that wants everybody to get along, and I want everything to be great all the time. And so sometimes I struggle to give that really honest feedback, which isn't meant to be hurtful or negative. It's just meant to be shared to help improve the project or the work environment or something like that, that ultimately probably improves the person's understanding of themselves, maybe even in how they're showing up to others. So I liked all the kind of micro topics that you were covering, and man, you could just deep dive in there for several hours, because I found some of them were only about 25 minutes long. Other was about 45 minutes long, which is a pretty doable, especially for somebody that likes to listen to a podcast when I walk. So that fits in really perfect time for a little bit of learning and exercise at the same time.
That's what a lot of people tell me, that they listen when they're walking.
Yes.
Or they're exercising or something. It's good.
Now, I would say a lot of my listeners aren't business owners, but honestly, I don't know that. I don't have conversations with most of my listeners. But I would say that a lot of people have this entrepreneurial spirit within them, whether it be that they want to start a business of their own, that they're in a business of their own, or, that they're even helping their daughter maybe in Girl Scouts or something, right? To where they've got to sell some cookies. Like, I feel like selling shows up in so many areas of our life, but when we say it like, oh, I need to learn to be a better salesperson or better at sales, we immediately think of what's required in business. But it's not, right? We're always selling to our spouse, our friends, our family, right? To kind of get maybe what we want, right? Even coming down to choosing the restaurant we want to go to versus where they might want to go to. And I think that when I started listening to your podcast and thinking, man, I think she would be a good guest on my show, because selling is such ingrained in our life in so many ways. And I was hoping maybe you could enlighten myself, because really that's where it starts, is my own curiosity, in sharing ways that we can better bring in kind of that sales mentality or skill, I should say sales skill, without it feeling like sales, without feeling like that, that shark used car salesman type of mentality that a lot of us think of when we think of like a sales job or getting better at sales.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that, and I so appreciate you saying that we're all selling at some point in some way. It's so true. And isn't it interesting that we don't think about it as sales when we're doing it over here? But the minute we hear sales, we instantly think of the used car salesman. Yeah. And it feels creepy and we don't want to do it. And, right? You just feel like you have to take a shower afterwards. So here's what I think. I think the real true selling skill is being curious.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not talking. It's not persuading. It's not convincing. It's not being, uber eloquent. It's none of those things. It's not having a really great presentation. It's none of those things. It's being very curious about whoever you're talking to, or, whatever situation it is, so that you are making that connection, building that trust, because you're really genuinely interested in the other person, what they have to say, what their perspective is, right? Like if I go back to where we're going to go for dinner, well, I may know where I want to go to dinner, but if I'm curious, and so I'm asking questions and I'm having a conversation and I'm learning about what's going on with the other person, together we're going to come up with a decision about where to go to dinner. So I'm still going to get what I want, right? I'm still going to make the sale, but the other person isn't going to feel like I just talked them into something.
Right. Or forced it to your decision. Yeah.
Right.
It is. It comes up in so many ways. And I like what, curiosity also involves asking questions, right? Yes. Which ultimately means we have to listen first. So I feel like it does come down in a lot of sense of listening. I mean, it does. Even when I first started this podcast, I, planned so diligently, and I pre-thought out all these questions, and I stalked the person the best I could through their social channels. And honestly, today I do my show 100% based on curiosity. And I find that they go much smoother. Number one, it's really me wanting to know what your answers are. It's really me trying to figure out, oh, this is a problem or something in my life I'm trying to figure out. And it seems like you're a little bit ahead of me on that path. So, I want you to open up and share, but it really comes down to me being curious about what it is that you do. Now, it might be selfish because what you do, I'm really wanting to gear towards helping me. But it finds its way back to genuinely listening and having conversations with people, which I absolutely love. Yeah.
Exactly. And isn't it more comfortable? Right? Yeah. It's more comfortable. It's easier. It's more natural. So people will do it.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to sell because we don't want to be that person. Well, who would? We don't like it when it's done to us. So, my vote is don't, because it really doesn't work. and is not good. Just learn, ask a lot of questions, really listen to the answers, because then they'll take you to the next question, right? Like it can't be over scripted. It has structure, but it's also pliable, right? Like we really have to be in the moment. We have to be actively listening, not waiting until we can ask our next question, because they're going to tell us everything we need to know about whether we want to continue to engage in that relationship or whether we don't. And that is going to, then we go down the road or we don't go down the road, but it all feels good.
So tell me a little bit about like small talk, right? Like this is like, I hate that. I'm more of an introvert, honestly, than I gave myself credit for a long time. So having to be in those kind of situations of just making small talk, I would rather poke myself in the eye. Like,
sure.
So how do we approach those kind of scenarios, especially when we feel like we're an introvert and we're, maybe don't know a lot about that person? And how do we engage that conversation?
I love that question. And can I just say that introverts make the best networkers, in my opinion. I know, right? You're thinking that can't possibly be because I don't like to talk.
Right.
Perfect, right? Because the quieter you ask a question and then be quiet and let them talk. They want to talk about themselves anyway. So this is why introverts make the best networkers, because they don't want to talk about themselves. They don't want to be the center of attention. Just great, because you shouldn't be, because people don't really care. I mean, it's a harsh truth, but they really don't care about you or what you sell or, the value or whatever, how long you've been doing it, until they trust you. And they can't get to trust you until they believe that you are genuinely interested in them and their future and their success and their issues and whatever it is. So I don't like small talk either, but I am always interested in learning someone's story. Because I think I'm fascinated by just people and how they got where they are, how they show up, whatever. You can actually say, so tell me your story. And then be quiet.
That seems so simple and obvious.
I know, right? I know, but no one ever does it. I mean, seriously, I know.
Tell your story.
Just tell me your story. I had a guy once say to me, which story? And I said, whichever one you want to tell me. I don't care. I don't know you. I know, right? We'll start with one and then maybe we'll move to another one. I don't know. But what you learn is what really is important to them, because it's going to be whichever story comes up first, right? So it is top of mind. So it's going to be whatever's most important to them right then. You're going to learn an awful lot about them. It's going to lead to other questions. It's going to be very genuine and authentic. It's going to feel really good. And so it's not going to be that uncomfortable. We've put so much weight on, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to do small talk. I don't want to do all these things. This takes that all away. Yeah,
because it feels like almost like showing off in a way, right? If you're just talking about yourself the whole time. But if somebody engages that question and they're asking you for that information, then it's not so much like you're, that A-type personality just, steamrolling over, the conversation or, the room or something like that. It seems very legitimate that somebody's asking you, so you better share, right? You're answering.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only suggestion I would give is for those people who are business owners or in business and have to go to networking things, if someone asks you what your story is, don't start telling them about your product or service, because that's not what they're asking you,
But that's where immediately we want to go, right? Because we're showing up at a networking event to convert somebody to buying whatever it is we're swinging.
No. So, see, I can relieve you of that as well. You're not going to get a customer at a networking event. So stop it, right? If we stop thinking, I got to get a new client, I got to get business, I got to, then we're so focused on that. That's how we show up. Well, then no one wants to be around us because they don't care. And they know you're going to be pushy. They know you're going to be trying to get them to the same place you are. You're not going to be comfortable with it. They're not going to be comfortable with it. It's a big, huge no. Go to a networking event to learn something. Just to learn something.
Learn something.
Yep.
That
That's it.
seems low stress, like
Yes.
something, right?
Right. It is. Should be.
So when you're in an event, let's just say, you're at a speaker event, right? I know that you're a national speaker. I also saw you're a member of the National Association of Women Business Owners.
Yes. It's a
And
great
I am
organization.
also a member of that, and I've never really plugged in. And I'm thinking about plugging into my Orlando chapter and seeing, who
You
could I
should.
meet? What could I learn from those relationships as well? So,
And plug into
yeah,
National as well, because National has a lot of virtual things
okay,
going on so that you can meet other women around the country. And
that's good.
it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really what, this whole thing has provided us all is that we are
Yes.
speaking to people all over the world now at the
Right.
drop of a hat. And I think that's really cool. What's come out of pandemic is that it's jumped us so far ahead to being comfortable at doing this. And I think
Yes.
it's really great. So
Yeah.
let me go back to that question. So
Sure.
let's say you're at an event, right? You're mingling with people and somebody says, "Tell me your story."
Yeah.
What's your answers for that? I mean, how far back do you go? What do you say?
So, I can tell you, I've never been asked what is my
Ooh,
story. But I will also tell you that when someone, usually what people do is they ask, so what do you do? Which is the worst question, in my opinion, because then people are going to tell you what they do. And you really don't care, right?
right.
You really just want to know who they are. So what I do is I say, I'd be happy to share that with you, but first I'd like to learn about you. Tell me your story. I just give it right back because I know then we're going to have a really good conversation. But if I got to tell them about what I do, they're not going to care. They're not going to listen. It's not really going to go anywhere. I'd have to be really intriguing. It's just way too much effort and unnatural. So
Okay, so
that's
say that
what
again. What do you say to them?
I say to them, I would love to tell you what I do, but first I'm really interested in your story. Tell me your
I
story
can tell you
first.
what I do, but first I'm really interested in your story.
Yep.
I like that because honestly, we all like to talk about ourselves. Like that's much better than listening to somebody's very long-winded story about themselves. Sometimes even when it's interesting, right? We have that knack of what's a 2-second attention span
Uh-huh.
these days that might be hard to stay engaged. So that's a really good tip, especially as we are getting kind of back to normal now. Groups are getting back together. Wedding season is coming up. You're going to find yourself around a lot of people you don't know very well, and you're going to be forced to mingle and chat. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
cool little tip right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to take credit for it, but it really comes from Dale Carnegie from How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Love him. Great.
Right?
I mean, that is some evergreen stuff right there that he has written so many years ago. So many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's based in just get them to talk, not you.
Yeah. Because he does come from like that sales. He's really from that
Yeah.
sales mentality. And I think, and when he was even doing it was like network marketing, I guess is probably the right term. Network marketing to where you were getting people to work with you and under you, whatever the term might be. But yeah, in order to keep people engaged. So, gosh, I haven't listened to one of his books in a long time. I might go back through my my Audible list and see. I'm sure I've got 2 or 3 of them in there. I might put them up on, might get them back in the downloads queue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is evergreen. That's what I love about it. He had it all figured out.
So I know you're an author of a few books, and I don't know what they are. I didn't really look into the books that you did. I was only interested in the podcast at the time. And can you tell me a little bit about the books? And are they all business? They're all in the business space?
They are.
Okay.
I do have some stories in a couple Chicken Soup for the Soul books. That was way back at the beginning. And I'm very proud of those. But I have 3 books. They're business books. The first one is Lemonade Stand Selling. Selling is as easy as it was when you were a child.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. Well,
we overthink shit so much. That's the problem, right? If we could just go back to like being 8, setting up a table when we didn't have any fears or preconceived notions or anything like that.
And we didn't care if people said no.
Well, that's true.
Because people said no all the time. And we stood in the street and screamed at cars. This was our marketing, to hold up a sign and scream at cars. But the people who bought from us were our neighbors. They were the people who already knew us, right? Yeah. And they were supporting us. But their reason for buying wasn't the reason we thought it was. Like, we thought they were thirsty. Well, no, they weren't, And the lemonade tastes terrible. So it's not like, this was really a great thing, right?
Yeah.
They were doing it because we were cute and they were supporting us. So that it's a very simple read. It's, I think maybe 100 pages. My second book is Expert Insights, and it's actually 10 episodes, 10 most listened to episodes of my podcast.
Interesting.
That I transcribed, yes,
wow.
And had a woman help me put in a book. And it was a friend of mine's idea, and you should take that idea.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Because you've been doing the podcast a long time. I feel like I saw some dates that were, and correct me if I'm wrong, like 2014, maybe 2015? Were there dates?
2009.
Wow, girl, that is impressive. Yeah. You've had a lot of people on. How do you narrow, or how do you choose the people that you want on? Are you choosing it by topic or by person, or are these people that you've known along the way?
No. So the way that I choose is I have a form that they fill out. Like, you have a form. So I have a form they have to fill out, and they have to follow the rules of the form. So they have to provide me with a title and a summary. It has to be around their expertise that they're going to share with the listeners, because I want the listeners to learn how to do things in their business. So, and then the questions that they give me have to be questions I can ask that really help educate the listeners. If they give me questions that are about themselves, their journey, their book, whatever, I don't bring them on. And I'm, people reach out to me all day long, every day, about they have a client or they want to be on the podcast. And that's my gauge.
That now I see how your podcasts are so focused on that kind of content, right? That very focused content. And that's what makes it digestible for somebody like me who wants to take it in, but quite honestly can't take in a whole bunch of stuff. And what I loved was I could just browse through your titles and be like, yeah, I'm short on knowledge of that right now. I'm just going to plug in. And what was it again? Take what you need when you need it. Exactly. And that really is a great way to provide that information in.
Yeah, that's my goal. My goal is that I can share with the listeners as much information as possible about how to do things differently in their business. And you figure out the areas that you might be struggling with, or questions that you have, things that are new to you. I'm just bringing you the people who have the expertise. And through a conversation, they're sharing that with you. That's my ultimate goal. So that's how I pick.
That's fantastic. You really have a great structure, and whoever is listening today, I'm telling you, it is worth it to plug in. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You do not have to be a business owner to plug in and see some of these topics. I mean, even one I think was like overcoming self-doubt. It has nothing to do with running a business, but it has everything to do with how we show up with ourselves and with others throughout the day in all sorts of things, whether you're a teenager or whether you're retired. I mean, it fits in everywhere. I really like that.
Yeah. Well, there's such an overlap between business and life, right?
Yeah.
You bring yourself to your business. So there's all that psychology and stuff that's going on there.
That's a whole nother show.
I know.
So, you talked, we touched briefly earlier about when you go to a networking group, the goal isn't to go there and make a sale. It's just to learn something. So is the old adage about it takes 7 touches to make a sale, are those things still appropriate today in our landscape of internet and e-commerce and, YouTube?
So yes, and that's marketing. So a lot of people are really, they muddy up sales and marketing, and they think they're one and the same or interchangeable, and they're not really. They work really well together. So you need to have both. But that's really when we're talking about marketing you have to be in front of someone, 7 to 12 times before they will remember you. And so that then you're top of mind when they need something that you offer. When it comes to selling, it really is, in my estimation, about really building and nurturing the relationship, not just with potential clients, but with your current customers, with past customers, with people you meet at networking events. They could be great resources for you. So, the people show up in your world in different ways. And I think it's our job to figure out how each one of them shows up, not to assume that this one's a potential client and that one is something, just to be curious once again, and say, I'm going to try and figure out if this person belongs in my orbit and how. Where do they play?
And that takes some talking, right? Some exchange.
It's like dating. Like what I always say to people is, did you get married on your first date? And I've yet to meet anyone who did.
I was going to ask that. How many people have said yes to that?
I had one guy say yes, but what he really meant was he knew he was going to marry his wife on his first date. I knew I was going to marry my husband on our first date.
Oh my gosh.
But we dated for a year. Right? You got to really build the relationship. You got to make sure, because at first blush, and anything can seem like it's great and wonderful, and then you got to find out. So
interesting. So treat it like dating. Treat everything like dating. Well, folks, that's the end of our show because I don't think we can top that. Oh my gosh. I mean, it seems uncomfortable. Like there is this whole uncomfortable factor to it that, which is why, again, I was curious to have you here today because I am trying to figure out that, and I come from like a very corporate, like legal background. It was very structured and rigid. And, the words that we used were very, thought out. But now in my business, I have to kind of reprogram my brain a little bit. And I've had to do that over the past 10 years is to even simple things like writing emails, right? Write like a human. I was so trained to write like a paralegal, which is completely different than, and not, listen, if you're a paralegal out there and you're listening to this, I am not knocking it. I'm just saying that we are taught to really kind of come from this very cold and corporate-y way to where I think authenticity gets us a lot farther. So,
for sure.
Using more language that we might use, maybe even more slang and stuff like that, to where, man, when I was in school or when I was, working in these offices, that would never would that have flown. Like it just wasn't permitted. So is the overall business world, you're definitely more in this corporate business environment than I am. Do you find that that's happening in many areas of business, or there's still very strongly structured areas that they haven't crossed that line yet?
It's interesting. It's a really great question. I think it still depends on the industry. I think it is the people who I meet who are very successful at business development, business growth, whatever it is, in whatever position they're in, are the ones who are so genuinely just themselves that they're magnetic. So like when you asked the question, what came to my mind was people I know who are bankers, and you would think, totally buttoned up, right? But the ones who are really successful are the ones who can really connect on that human level. So you trust them and you really know they have your best interest in mind. And that's what we want as buyers, as consumers. That's what all buyers want. They want to believe that you are more interested in making sure I get what I need and want than you are in making a sale.
So where do people start off? So I know that like even when you think of job applications out there or, apply to be a salesperson. I mean, unless you're really that action type personality, that's you're going to always kind of shy away from that because it has, like we talked about earlier, that kind of negative, feeling attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a better word for salesperson? Is there something out there?
That's a great question. Gosh, I hope so. You know what it comes down to, though? I think it comes down to how the organization sees the role, because then that's what they're going to look for in people when people come in. So there's a car dealership in, I want to say Vermont, that handles selling cars completely differently from every other car dealership on the planet. And the guy who started that is Jeff Morrill, and he wrote a book called Profit Wise, and I had him on my podcast. First of all, his book is fabulous.
Profit Wise?
Profit Wise. Yep. It's fabulous because he just gets down to, it's not about selling. It's about serving. It's about problem solving. It's about help, really understanding what someone needs and wants. And then if you can give it to them, give it to them. But don't try and talk them into something because you have quoted to me. It's a whole. So I think it really comes down to the organization and how the organization sees sales. Like I did a training for an organization. They have inside customer service people who they want to be doing some sort of selling, but they don't want them to be doing it in the traditional sales sort of way.
Right.
So, people are going to be more successful and happier if they're in a place where the leadership realizes that it's about relationship building. So a lot of places call it the relationship manager as opposed to salesperson.
Oh, that's pretty clever.
Yeah.
Relationship manager. Yeah, because you really are managing the flow of that relationship with the goal to be some sort of sale or collaboration or whatever the goal is. But
right.
Yeah, it is managing that. So is that something that you do in your business, is you help teach these people how to sell without selling or be relationship managers?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how does that go? Give me a little tidbit on that.
So what we do is first identify, I have them go back and look at where they got their current clients from or past clients from, because what I find is usually that there's something that works over and over again for them. And it's not the typical salesy thing, but there's something that they've done that has worked repeatedly. So we talk about that, and then how can they do more of that, because that's what works. So because that's what it really comes down to. Everyone's different and everyone's going to have relationships differently. The way that I sell is going to be different from the way that you sell or, have these conversations. So we start with identifying what an ideal client looks like, where they've gotten their clients from, the ones that they really like, the ones that they really hate. We really break it down. And then where are those clients? Where should the salesperson, what sort of discovery should the salesperson be doing to build that pool of prospects, to know who they should really be talking to? And then how are they going to research them? Because there's an awful lot we should discover about a prospect before we ever reach out to them. It's activity versus productivity. Activity is picking up the phone and dialing for dollars. Nobody likes it. It's awful. And it's really unproductive. Productivity is knowing what an ideal client looks like, but then going and researching to see who looks like they might be that person or that company. And then when you do outreach, it's only to have a conversation. It's not to make a sale. You just want to talk. You want to learn more about whatever you learned about them to begin with. Right?
But you can't really say to that person, tell me your story, right? Like this is...
No, that works on networking.
I'm going to call you up. By the way, tell me your story. I've stalked you on LinkedIn. Now tell me all about yourself.
Exactly. Tell me the things I didn't find. Right.
I didn't
know. Yeah. No. But you can say, I read in whatever magazine that you're breaking ground on a new location. And I would love to learn more about, your initiatives, what you've got going on. I have a pool of resources, people who I trust. And if I can, if there's something you need and I can connect you, I would love to do that.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, when I was a salesperson, I used to say to people, I'm not going to try and sell you anything, but is it worth it to have a conversation? I'll let you know. If I have something that I think you need, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you that too. So it brought the temperature down immediately, right? Now we could just have a conversation and I could ask my questions and I could learn about what was going on with them. And I could figure out in my head, okay, is there an opportunity for me to help them or not? And with a lot of people, the answer was no. And I would tell them that. So you know what it did? It built a lot of trust. And I didn't necessarily do business with them, but I got referred by them because what they would say is, just go call Diane. She'll tell you the truth.
Yeah. Wow. That's really powerful, and I liked what you said about them, about you saying to them, look, I have a lot of contacts in this space, or, maybe there's a connection that I can make for you there. And who doesn't want to have a new connection that might be able to help them in some way?
Exactly. And what I'm telling them is, this isn't about me selling you something. This is about me helping you problem solve. But first I got to know what the problems are, right?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. And then we go into what sort of questions should you ask when you're in that sales conversation so that you can really learn a lot about them. Because the one thing people do is they think they're supposed to close every deal. And you're not. You're supposed to discover if there's a deal there, if there's a further relationship there. And sometimes it's going to be yes, and sometimes it's going to be no. And that's really your job.
Okay, so let me just say, where can I sign up for that class? Because that is not selling, right? That is simply being curious.
Yeah.
Simply being curious.
Well, I will tell you that, so my third book, Succeed Without Selling, The More You Think About Selling, The Less You'll Sell, is actually a virtual book club. So,
wow.
Yeah. So people can go to the book club, you get the book, and then it's 28 days of micro lessons from the book.
Okay, so tell me the title of the book again. I'm taking some copious notes right here.
Succeed Without Selling is the title, which usually grabs people who don't want to be salespeople.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love that title?
I know, right? So, yeah, a great title. Yeah, and it is a virtual book club. Of course, I probably don't even have the link on me, but I can get it to you. Okay. So people can go and they sign up for the book club, and then it starts every month on the first of the month. And so you can sign up for it between the 1st and the 8th of the month for that month. And it takes you through these micro lessons. There's videos, but it's 14 minutes a day. It's like nothing. It's these little bites. Takes you through the whole book, because I go through from the beginning of the sales cycle to the end of the sales cycle and a couple things in between. And so in my opinion, that's a great place for people to start, because it's easy to digest. You're going to put it in your own world. And, then if after that you say, okay, but I really need something, then we just do it. Right now, I'm doing it individually, one-to-one. We do a strategy session, and then we plot out what your course looks like, what your path is going to be.
Very cool. Wow. Diane, that is really cool. I'm definitely going to be checking out your virtual book club. I think that is I love how it kind of, not only in the doable chunks, but I like that it kind of culminates on top of all that information that you learn. So it doesn't feel like you're having to shove it down your throat all at one time, which is kind of how a lot of the books that I listen to and that I read, it's like I'm taking in this whole book without really having anybody to bounce it off of in between or, build upon what I've just learned. So I'm so glad I had you on today. This has been really great, really great. So I guess my final question is probably for those people who don't run a business or who are listening and maybe you're already retired or, work a 9 to 5 job. How is it what you do and what you share valuable to them? And is there anything that, you would share with them specifically?
That's a really good question. So I think I would say that whether you realize it or not, there are times when you are technically selling, and that really there are all kinds of aspects of our lives where curiosity is really valuable and important, especially these days where people are not as curious as maybe they should be, in my opinion. So I would say, embrace curiosity at every move. Find facts. Learn about whatever is of interest to you. It's how we stay young. It's how we keep our brain, building new neural pathways. There's so much good that comes from curiosity, and it's a positive sort of, energy level. So I think everyone should be curious all the time.
Is there a way to work that curiosity muscle? I think like what you just said, if we're losing that kind of curiosity in our society overall, maybe, I think when I've been told to, get my creative juices together, right? It's like, go and just stare at clouds and find things within the clouds. It makes your brain have to, kind of think outside that box and really be creative about what you're saying. So is there something like kind of tricky like that you could do to get the curiosity muscle strong again?
I would say if you can explore, if you think about something that you don't know anything about, but maybe you've been curious about in the past. So is there something that if you think about, well, I don't know about that. Like for me, it would be cooking. It would be a lot of things. Cooking would be one of them, or car repair. So I think we all have things that we can say to ourselves, what don't I know about? Or you can say, what's available around me that I don't take advantage of, like the art museum, the parks. See what I mean? Like find things that are around that you really aren't, that are sort of flying by you.
You have to kind of get out of your comfort zone.
You do. It's
getting out of that space that we've grown so comfortable in day after day. And that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Good way of looking at it.
Yeah. Go exploring, There's new businesses opening up. There's new restaurants. If there's different sorts of food. Like I didn't think I liked sushi until I figured out what it was I didn't like about it and got over it. And had someone, take me to a restaurant and, show me the different whatever, because I knew nothing about it, but now I love it. So, and you're never too old to learn.
Never.
Ever.
It reminds me of a story, my dad used to always tell me that for years he never ate sour cream because of the name. That was just enough to say, why would I eat that? Right.
Yeah.
And when he finally did, I think maybe it was like in his late 20s or something. From that point on, he always said, I'm putting on extra sour cream because now I got to make up for all those years I didn't eat it. So it is that kind of like getting out of your own way, right? Experiencing these things that your body's probably telling you, I don't know about that, but just try it. Just try it.
You might not like it.
Right.
Okay. Well, right. And then move on. Take a class. Go to the orchestra. There's any number. I mean, my grandmother used to say, "Life is long and full of wonder," and it's really true. There is so much out there that could be explored.
So much.
Get curious.
That is a great way to wrap up our show today. I am so thankful that you came, gave some time today, shared with what you did, because what you're doing, I think, is very valuable on so many levels. So let people know where they can find you. And if you have any events coming up, if you'd like to share that too.
I will certainly do that. Thank you so much. The easiest way to find me and what I've got going on is my website, which is helbigenterprises.com. There's an events page there. Trying to think of what I mean, I have things going on locally here, but
And what state are you in?
in Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. Well, that's great for those listening in the Ohio area, right? You can contact her directly. Are you doing live events?
I am starting
Okay.
to do
Very
live
cool.
events.
Good to
Yeah,
know.
thank goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And are you on social? Do you have a
I am on
group or
social.
anything that you do? Okay.
I don't have a group. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook business page. I sort of got away from Facebook for a while. I'm on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. So I do periodic, I call them Succeed Without Selling Salon, where I share some sort of tidbit about what we should be doing, in the sales space. So, and I have my podcast.
Are your podcasts on YouTube or are you just audio only?
Audio only.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's how I've been listening to them. I was just curious, to
Yeah.
how that's overlaying. Well, this has been really great, Diane. I just, thank you for taking the time again. I know I already said that, but I feel really grateful when people make time and show up and share just some really cool stuff. And, the more we can talk to each other and share this kind of thing, it just brings more value to everybody's life. So,
Yeah.
Again, I appreciate you being here. And to those listening today, I'm so grateful for you taking the time to listen to our conversation. And if you know somebody really cool like Diane, please reach out to me and put me in contact with them. I would love to invite them on my show as well. So please continue listening and subscribe. We put out a new podcast about every 2 weeks. So until we all meet again, please be kind to each other and love one another. Peace out.